Okay, recording. You can have people that are on your list forever, and then all of a sudden the timing is right. Hold on, I have so many windows open here. There we go. Whoa. When the timing is right, and people will respond to you. I just had my file up, you saw it, and now.
Yeah, you'll find it.
That's fine. Here it is. Okay, now let me share it. So this is a longer presentation and I've cut a lot of it out. Here we go. So let me know if you can see it. Okay. So I'm going to set my clock to like at 20 minutes because I can talk and have different stories that go on and on. I'm not going to watch the chat so much as when we're done, if we've got time, Joyce, so you can kind of pay.
Yeah, I'll do that for you. And everyone, by the way, everyone should be muted except for Lori. Okay, so go back to Lori. Go ahead.
Okay, perfect. So we're going to talk a little bit about email marketing. And one thing that's not in my presentation, but I just started wondering as I was waiting for this meeting, like, how long has email been around, especially since I said, you know, dinosaur or lifesaver. And so I was looking up and it's like email has gone through all these iterations, right? Like there was FTP, file transfer protocol, and then SMTP, and all these different ways that email works, and first started commercially and then kind of made its way into the general public. But 1971 is kind of when email really started, but it wasn't until the 90s when most of us really had it like in our home or even had computers in our home. And so then I got curious and I looked up and it's like AOL started in 1993. So that's 30 years ago. Hotmail started in 1996. Yahoo started in 1997 and Gmail started in 2004. So you can look at it two different ways. I mean, email's been around a long time, but it really hasn't been around that long. So I think email is so important because it helps you tell your story, because you need to do that. And there's a whole bunch of different ways to do that. But email kind of plays nice with all those different ways. And the biggest thing that I think is really the differentiator with email is the spam laws. So if you're playing by the rules, when you're email marketing, everybody you're sending an email to knows you. So it's much warmer marketing. It's not cold calling, if you will. That is not to say you can't buy a list. I don't work with people who buy lists because even though in theory they've been run through opt-in, they're really not opting in to you. So the ROI is very high on email, which means you get a lot back for the money that you're spending and the effort you're putting out. And I think the biggest thing is when you have an email list, you own it, right? You've gotten permission from somebody to email you. So you have that list and you own it. If you're on social media, which I still think you should do, but all of your followers, you can lose them overnight. You know, the algorithms change or something gets shut down, you get hacked. I'm no longer on Facebook because that happened to me. I could never get back on. And then I finally said, okay, I'm just not going to be on. But I think that that point gets lost on a lot of people. You could spend a lot of time and effort building up a lot of followers and they could be gone overnight and there is nothing you can do about it. And if you're not doing paid traffic, if you're just doing organic posting, your posts are being shown to like 2 to 4% of your followers, not 2 to 4% of the population, not 2 to 4% of like everyone who's on Instagram. If you have 1,000 followers on Instagram, 2 to 4% of those people. So the organic email social media game, I think, is worth doing, but I think your expectations really need to be checked and it needs to be in combination with something else like email. So in case you're wondering if it's still relevant, because I think so many people say email is dead or nobody reads email, people still read email. 99% of email users check their inbox at least once a day. And if you say, yeah, but I don't read all the spam, I just delete all that stuff, you probably at one point signed up for some of that, if not all of it, and maybe knowingly or unknowingly, and you can unsubscribe. But what I have found over years of doing this is if you have an email list and you're touching those people periodically, whether it's weekly, monthly, quarterly, they may not read your email every time, but they see your name, and there is value in just seeing your name, whether or not they're opening the mail. And a lot of people, even if they don't open your email frequently, they're not unsubscribing, because if they know you and they see there's value in it, they may look at it, look at your subject line, depending on how busy they are or what the subject line is, they may open it or not, but there's still value in them just seeing your name. So the return on investment, and Joyce mentioned that in the introduction, they estimate between $36 and $42 for email marketing, which means for every dollar you spend, that's what you get back. Now, of course, ROI is not always a direct thing. Like, I ran this one campaign, I got this from that campaign, here's how much money I made. It's taking all these things into consideration, but that is a really high ROI. They say the ROI for search engine optimization or SEO is $22. And so it's worth doing. It's a way. I told someone this yesterday, a client, you can email one person as a follow-up to a phone conversation and send them an article, for example, that you wrote. But in the same amount of time, you could send that to your entire list. So you could potentially send the same message to 500 people as one person. So it just helps you leverage yourself so much more. A few more stats. A good open rate is between 17 and 28%. I know that seems like quite a range. I'm sure there are some of you probably on this call that are doing email and you probably have a much higher rate. The better your list is, the better your open rate will be, and the better your content, the more relevant your content is, your open rate will also be higher. And the reason I even mention this is because if people are wondering if it's worth it to start like doing a monthly email tip or email newsletter, I think if they see open rates that are in the teens, they just think that's too low and it's not worth doing. So I always try and set the expectations. You know, it's not probably going to be a 90% open rate, because think of you and all the email you receive, and you may not want to delete and unsubscribe from all those people, but you don't have time to read everybody's email every single day. So having your expectations set, I think, is really important. And like Joyce mentioned, you can have someone on a list for years and every once in a while they open your stuff, but when the timing is right, they're there and they know eventually you're going to show up in their email box again. So 85% of online users use their phone to check their email. 83% of marketers use email engagement to judge the success of their content. And 69% open rate is for welcome emails. So when I said a good open rate was 17 to 28%, and it is, if you have a welcome email, if you're trying to get people on your list and the very first, meaning the very first email they get from you, that open rate is 69%. So if you're doing email, you really want to make sure that that open welcome email has some good calls to action in it. So I just want to talk for a minute about how email marketing works. So it's like, it's got a high ROI. So what? It's like, what can you use it to do? And I think one of the biggest things it does, it builds relationships. So if you've heard of the know, like, and trust vector, using email can help support that, and it helps you build a credible reputation with people because you're showing up consistently, you're giving people valuable information, you're reminding them that they're there, you're actually proving that your brand promise is valid and true. You can also use email marketing for direct selling. Now, that's not something that I would say you shouldn't exclusively do that, like never email anyone and then all of a sudden you want to sell them something, so you bombard them with a few emails. I look at email as being more of a relationship building tool that you use consistently to show up for people so that they can realize you show up and you have value to offer. Then when it's time to sell, they're much more likely to be a buyer. Now, another thing about email, and I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but it plays nice with like all the other marketing things, you know, in your toolbox. So social media, your website, using video, and like Heather's on here and does video. Videos are so powerful. You can put videos inside your email. So there's things that you can do to lead people back and forth to different places, because sometimes, you know, you could even do a direct mail postcard and then have an offer to get someone on an email list. You can use social media. And here's where I'll talk a little bit, since this is simplify your social media. I think the way I look at it is social media is a really good tool for attracting strangers, cold traffic, people not knowing who you are, and they come across you either through hashtags or just searching, or a friend of a friend. They see you on social media, then they may start following you. What you want to do is then try to get their email address so that you own that again, so that you can nurture that warm relationship. So I think social media is more geared towards cold audience, and also warm, but colder audience, and then getting warmer after you get their email address. Obviously, a lot of people have their website as their hub. And so you can have email sign up on your website. You can send out emails and drive links for people to go back to your website. So if you look at this very integral thing, email should be part of a plan, not just email only, and that's all that you do. So kind of already covered this about going back and forth. So let's talk for a minute about the list. So some of the biggest things when people talk to me about, they don't know if they should start emailing, or they see it has value, but the places they get tripped up is, I don't have enough people on my list, or I don't even have a list. So it's the list, and then it's the content. What am I going to tell people? So we'll just spend a couple minutes on each one. And first of all, the list. It's like, who's on your list? If you don't have a list, I can believe that you don't have one, maybe in a file like an Excel file, or maybe in a database. But if you sat down right now and thought you didn't have a list and started writing out by hand even, you do have a list. Because don't only think of your clients and don't only think of your prospects. Prospects, existing customers, past customers, networking partners, referral partners, staff members, team members, friends, even your mom can be on your email list. If you need to get started with an email list, you start from where you are. And I think it's better to have 20 people on a list and start emailing them to get into the habit, and then build your list, instead of thinking that you have to get to this magic number before you send anything. The only thing I'll say right now about segmenting is, what's really cool about using an email service provider, and there's literally hundreds of them, like something like a Constant Contact or a MailChimp, you can segment lists so that you could take, like this list I have right here, existing customers, past customers, you can tag people and put them in different lists or have different tags, so that it's easy to send an email out and say, I only want to send this one to these people. And that's how I usually answer the question of, I don't know if I should segment my list or not. If you ever have the need to send something out to these guys and not those guys, that's when it's worth it to segment. A lot of people will just dump all their people into one list in one bucket, and that's okay. That's how most of us start. And in reality, there's probably a lot of very relevant content that you can send to everybody on your list.
Just really quick to interrupt, Lori. It's
Yeah.
a question about how to ethically ask your friends, your relatives. What's the best way to ask them to be on your list?
Well, when you talk about ethically, I think the fact that you're asking is being ethical, because, you know, with the, and this is not in this presentation because we don't have time, talking about spam laws. The spam laws are real. You really can get fined. And that's why emails are supposed to be an opt-in process. The very first time you start a list, to be honest, you have to look at your list and use your own judgment of, oh gosh, these people are all in my networking group. I know them really well. I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm just going to add them to my list. And hopefully that's okay with everybody. And they can unsubscribe if they want. Legally, it's not okay to have someone on your list that hasn't given you permission. Realistically, especially the first time, I think you have to start somewhere. I do not believe that when you go to a networking event, so if I'm going to bust anybody here, you know, that is what it is. But if you go to a networking event, you collect a bunch of business cards and then you add them all to your email list, that's not okay. That's not opt-in permission. You could send them an email saying it was nice to meet you. Could I add you to my list and get permission? Or when you meet them in person, you can ask them, of course, but you need to be getting permission. And I think there's, to your point, Joyce, there's easy ways to ask depending on what you're at. If you do a table at a trade show, for example, you could have a sign-up sheet. You could have a giveaway or a contest or something like that, where they have to provide their email and you have a little note that says, by providing your email, you're giving me permission to add, you know, me to your list. That is ethical. I think when you meet people, maybe not completely cold, hi, my name's Lori, can I add you to my list? That feels a little invasive, right? And we all have different ways we talk to people, but I think ethically, it's perfectly okay if you're having a conversation with somebody and if you feel like it's relevant, like, and I'm not seeing you on my side right now, but the person who just wrote the book, if you're having a conversation with someone and you mention your book and they sound interested and they say, oh, I come from that same background, you might say, oh, I send out a monthly newsletter that has tips related to this. Would you mind if I put you on my list? Those are ways I think that you do an easy ask. And I think the ethical part comes with, if they don't say yes, you don't do it. Does that answer your question? Okay. So start where you are. Like I said, make sure list building is a priority and stays a priority for you, because if you just build, and then you stop, over time, just through attrition, you're going to lose some people because people switch jobs, people die, people move, and they, you know, do different things, and they might not want to be on the list. So you've always got to be adding people. And some of this other bullets are things we just talked about, like how to ask people to be on your list. So we don't have a whole lot of time left. So I'm going to switch from list stuff to content stuff. So a lot of times people don't know what they need to send. So I want to remind you, there are other things in life besides newsletters, quote newsletters. There's the main two types of email marketing is transactional and promotional. Transactional means I booked a session with Joyce. Joyce sends me an email to say, thank you for your business. Here's the time that we're going to meet. Here's the link. There's a transaction there. You don't need permission to email someone a transactional email because it is transactional. Promotional is everything that's marketing, and that's what the spam laws apply to. So there's transactional and promotional. If you're wanting to do promotional email, keep in mind there's more things than just a newsletter. Like I said, you could send a really short tip of the month, especially if you're a service provider, which is a lot of people on this call are. So you know things that people find valuable, share them. You can share them in writing, you can share them in a little video that you do that's, you know, a tip of the month. You can use your email to send invitations to things. You can post special announcements you can send out in email. You can have a nurture sequence, which also is known as a funnel, where you're getting, maybe you give away a document or an ebook, and that puts them into your list, and you have a prescribed number of automatic emails. I'm sure we've all been in people's nurture sequences where, you know, you thank you for asking for this, and then you follow up maybe 3 days later, and then you follow up a week later, and you might have a series of emails. That's like a nurture sequence. So that's another way to use email. And also, if you're launching something, if you're launching a book launch or an online course or something like that, email is a great way to lead up to that. So think of it this way. all those things I just mentioned, you can accomplish all of this by using email. You can educate people, you can sell to people, you can deliver customer service to people, you can do research from your list, you can ask people polls and surveys and questions through email, you can invite people, you can update people, you can entertain people. So there's a whole lot of things you can do with email. And if you tell me, I see I've got 38 seconds. I'm going to turn this off and I'm almost done. But if you tell me that you can't think of anything to say, I would challenge you, and I could probably in 5 minutes come up with a whole list of things that you know that's valuable that people would like to know. So if you ever struggle with content, just remember this. Number one, it needs to be relevant. If it's not relevant to people, they are going to unsubscribe. They're not going to care. So what are the questions people ask you about your business? That's the easiest place to start. If anyone ever asks you something, and often it's the same stuff, right? People ask the same questions over and over. That tells you that's relevant to those people, and you can write things about that, create content around that. Besides relevance, remember that consistency matters even more than creativity. So if you're trying to find the right picture and you wait for 3 months and you don't send something out, send it out earlier with a different picture or no picture, because you just need to get it out. And lastly, remember, it's about them. It's not about you. Obviously, it's about you to the extent that you're the service provider. And so it's a relationship with them, but you always want to tie your content to how it affects them.
Say, Laura, you can speak for another 5 minutes or so. We're just at 2:15.
Okay.
It's okay. Cool. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So I wanted to go over these best practices because I think email can be really, it can feel really big or it can feel really overwhelming, but it's a step-by-step thing. And there's certain things once you get started that you don't really have to do again, you know, identifying your audience, thinking of some stuff that's relevant content. So these are just the 10 best practices that I believe are 10 best practices. And number one is get that opt-in permission. You're being legal there. Be spam compliant. And if you use an email service provider, that's one of the biggest reasons to use them, is they will help you be spam compliant, because they will not let you send out an email without an unsubscribe link, without an address. You know, there's certain things in the spam laws that email service providers like Constant Contact take care of for you. They make sure you've got an unsubscribe. That's one of the things. Don't share your list. That's a really important best practice, because if you spend time building up your organic list, not only is your open rate going to be higher, like we mentioned in the beginning, but people are going to respect you more. And there's nothing I think that is worse if you all of a sudden they figure out all of a sudden they're getting stuff from somebody and they knew it was because you knew them and you shared your list. They're not going to be happy. Number 4, have relevant content. We've already talked about. Number 5, for the sake of all things holy, please proof your emails. That seems so silly to have to say that, and some people don't care. I judge people and I can't help it, I guess, and we've got other writers and editors here, but you know, it's like being the grammar Nazi or something, you know, it's like that is a reflection on you professionally. So if you struggle with that, and I'm not saying everyone has great spelling or grammar, run your emails by somebody else, send it to a friend and send it to a colleague, have your husband read it, anybody, just to check it, because they'll see things that you might not see when you've looked at it multiple times. So please proof your emails. Makes you look a lot better. Make sure all of your emails are aligned with your brand, meaning visually, meaning brand voice, your tone, your style, your colors, all of that stuff. When they get an email, it should look like you and your company. It shouldn't be different. Use images, video, and links. Heather can attest to this for sure. People like to look at stuff. It's easier for them to absorb. If you have even photos that are related, that increases people paying attention. And video, you've got the, you know, listening to it and seeing it, things, you've got the double whammy. So put those into your email. It just doesn't have to be dry writing. Number 8 is have a call to action. If you're going to make the effort to send out an email, please have a call to action in every email. And it could be as simple as, here's my calendar so that you can schedule an appointment with me, or please visit my website. It doesn't have to be wildly different, and wildly creative every time, but have something that you want that person to do, like hopefully you've inspired them to do something from your email. The next one is test different subject lines, test different times of the week, test different things to see when you get the highest open rate. Typically, they still say Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is the best time to send emails. You can send kind of batch emails. The emails that come out at 4 and 5 a.m., those are the ones usually that I don't read, because when you log on in the morning and all of a sudden you get this download, there's a whole bunch of things and those are all commercial things. Those are the things I think people skip over. So test to find out what's the best time for you. And then pay attention to your analytics so that you can tweak them, because another super cool thing about all things online marketing and email is that you can get analytics and see what people are doing. You can see how many people opened your email, how many bounced, how many clicked on a link, and not just how many, but who they are, who unsubscribed, who, if you're paying, and I know you don't have tons of time to be doing this, but if you're paying attention, you will notice there are certain people that really follow you. And every time you send something out, they're clicking on the links that you have. So you can test that too, to see what people want. So I would just kind of close with this, and that is, if you're considering doing email, but you're not sure, ask yourself, not so much, oh, what do I have, how much am I going to make on my bottom line if I add email? Think about how much you could be losing by not doing it. So if you feel like, and this happens all the time, I have people tell me they know they're losing money because they're not doing a good job staying in touch with people, because we have a freaking lot of stuff to do as an entrepreneur, and staying in touch with people is always high on our intention list, but sometimes it's difficult to do. So if that's the boat that you're in, consider doing email, just because you can really reach a lot of people in an easy way. If you feel like you're working so hard on always getting new clients and you're ignoring your old ones, that's another key indicator, because I don't know about you guys, but when you're in a sales situation, even if someone's trying to sell something to you, they're your best friend when they're trying to sell something to you, right? And the minute you buy it or don't buy it, they're gone. And so I think email is one of the nicest ways to stay in touch with the people who already know you or who have already bought from you, and keep your relationship strong with them. So also, if you feel like you're missing referrals just because you're not staying in touch with everyone, consider putting those people on an email list. So I put a link with my information, contact information, that's got a discount code for Constant Contact. If anyone's interested in signing up for Constant Contact, they have lowered some of their pricing, and their core plan starts at like $10 a month for up to 500 people, sending up to 24 emails a month, which none of us are going to, be sending that many. And this is just to kind of show you that, I'll stop my share right now. It's to show you that it is easier, I think, and more affordable than a lot of people think that it is. So I would just kind of encourage you to realize that email's not dead. It can work. There's almost, I can't think of any business that it would not work for. So hopefully you'll kind of take that information, and if you're not emailing, considering something to start that feels doable to you. I just talked to someone recently and she said, monthly sounds good, and I know I can't get something out once a month. So do quarterly, start with like what you've got for a list, start with where you are, and then see what kind of response you get and grow from there.
Heather was just asking that question. A good number of emails to send a month. Really sounds like it really is up to you, what you feel you can manage, right, Lori?
Well, yeah, I think the consistency is probably more important. And sometimes I feel bad saying that, because I'm probably not the most consistent person in the world. And it's like, if you send something once a month, that's never going to be too much. And people, thanks for asking that, Heather, because people always ask what's too much. What's too much is going to be different for every different person's audience. And some people literally can send, who gets, I'm trying to think, I'm sure there are ones that I get every single day. I think every single day is kind of too much, but if you're sending out like a meditation of the day, people might like it. You know, if you sent out something weekly, most of us, I bet you, would say, oh, that's too much. It is not too much. Almost anybody's audience, I think, if it's relevant content, they could handle getting a weekly email. The question is that going to be easy enough for you to get out? And it may not be. So start with something that you can manage and still keep up with.
Great. First off, let's just applaud you for those. This is such an awesome presentation.
Hopefully that there's so much to cover, but it's like
a lot. It's kind of daunting. Do we have time for a couple of questions? There's a virtual laughing. Anybody have questions they'd like to bring up to just unmute and ask her or ask in the chat?
I do.
Marsha, I see Marsha.
Yep, I do. I actually have a couple of questions, but they're easy for you. Not so easy for me. I send out a monthly, or try to, and sometimes that becomes twice a month if I feel like it, but I monthly is the standard. I have on my website, if you join my mailing list, I send them something. How often should I be changing that something that I send to them? Like I have 10 tips because a person is only going to join one time. Do I just keep that same thing going if it's...
If it is working, you stick with it, because when you get,
if it's working, they get it and they haven't unsubscribed, but so
well,
I'm
then
assuming they like it.
I would say that that's something. I mean, if you create something new that you want to push out there, I think it's fine. But yeah, one good download you could just use over and over again, because you're exactly right, Marcia. They sign up once. It's not like you need to get them to re-sign up every month. So you don't always have to create new things. And think of it this way. If the thing, like the free download, if that's what gets someone on your list, now you have the opportunity. They're already on your list. So if you're staying in touch with the monthly, you create something new, you can send it directly to them.
That's true. Okay. And one last other little one. I do my newsletter after a few months. After a while, I put it on my website as a blog that just sits there. Is that good, or is that just like, I've read that before, so I don't even want to go back to our website again?
I would say the biggest advantage to doing that would be for SEO. So if you've got, every time, and two things about it: fresh content. Google likes fresh content on your website, so that's good to put those things. Okay. And also when you're writing your blog post and your newsletters, I'm assuming there's going to be things in there that are probably relevant keywords. So yes, putting them on your websites, absolutely. Repurposing content, you guys, repurposing content is not a bad thing. It's a good thing.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll do kind of the flip of that, where I'll have my a blog post I recently put up, or maybe even just a LinkedIn post, and I'll put that into my monthly
email.
Newsletter.
Yeah.
So
either way.
Newsletter. Yeah.
And then you take that same stuff and you pull out little things in there that can be social media posts.
Right.
You can create one piece of content and get a whole lot out of it.
Good.
Maybe time for one more question.
I was wondering about the headline analyzer, if that's a good tool to use, or what you think of it.
I think any of those tools are okay as long as you use your judgment on top of them, if that makes sense.
Of course, yeah.
You're still going to be the person who knows your audience best. I will say, really, really play around with your subject lines. And please, I can't believe I didn't say this, so I'll just, this answer will be the last thing that I've got. Please don't send out a monthly tip. Say you have a monthly tip and the subject line says tip of the month January, tip of the month February, tip of the month March. Oh my God, you're wasting so much real estate. Say in your subject line something about what it's about, because that's what's going to increase more people opening it.
Thank you.
Point.
Yep.
Great. This was
Thank
awesome.
you guys.
Yeah, one more time. Yay. Good job.
Thanks.
Good job. So our speaker next month, I'm just going to flip over to my we go. We have my new photographer, Kelly Hendrickson, who I met through the She Leads group, Supporting Hearts and Enterprise. And the title is How to Grow Your Business Through Professional Headshots. And if you've been paying any attention to me, those on LinkedIn with me, well, let me just go off video and you'll see that's my new professional headshot. That is not the one I was originally going to pick. But I show that to people like, oh my gosh, Joyce, that is you. That is so you. I'm like, okay, I got to own it now, right? So the woman who took that picture is who's going to speak next month on April 11th. So I hope you all come back for that, because it's just discontinuing with this branding theme here. Also, I was thinking about also having Debbie, who did my new logo. She does a great presentation, doesn't she? Debbie Stratton, another
Yes.
person from the She Leads group. I've seen her do that. And in May, we have another She Lady come talking about celebrating. So I hopefully am a poster child for celebrating, which is a good note to end on, because if you have time available tomorrow, I know some of you already signed up, Mountain Time, 4:30 p.m. for about an hour, as I was saying earlier, I'll be celebrating my 10th anniversary of my business. Again, not as long as some of you, but in business, but I'm proud of it. So feel free to simply email me, because you have my content in here, or put it in the chat, but it's easier for me if you send me by email, because then I'll send you the registration link. The way I've set it up is just like we have the Simplify Your Social Media, where you do need to register through the Zoom for the Zoom meeting. And that will then, when you click on that, there'll be a waiting room again, just like we have for today. And what else was I going to say? Something else about it. It's okay if you have to come a little late, you have to leave early. The format will be, we'll have a few fun factoids, kind of like a machine. And then I'll do about a 10-minute talk, I'd say, about how my business started. And I'm going to focus on the different groups that I've been part of over those 10 years. And then my MC will ask me some questions we planned out in my head, and then you'll have time for the attendees to ask questions, or, just rave about me, or something, So can think of it kind of like a roast/toast, sort of like, I don't know, the Academy Awards come to mind in my talk. And let me thank, all these people, kind of fresh in my mind, right, from just having watched it. So I think that's all for now, because unless we have any other right at 2:30, anybody have any final parting thoughts here? But this has been great. Thanks for staying with us. It's just been a delight. Thank you again, Lori. I've seen this presentation. Every time I see it, I get something new out of it or reminded. So I appreciate everybody coming. We'll see you hopefully next month. And those you can come tomorrow, I'd love to have. I am recording that too. So if you'd like to just, it'll be hopefully entertaining, if nothing else. It's informative if you're like a groupie of mine, then you can just let me know and I'll send you the Zoom recording. So take care. Hopefully see
Thanks,
you in a month.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.